Well, good morning. Thanks for getting on so early in the morning. I know you guys stay up really late at night, so I don't know what time you generally get up, but I do appreciate it. Really excited to be down here in Tuscaloosa. We're obviously with a familiar foe. We've played four times this year. Right now we're split. We're even 2-2. It's just a great super regional. The other thing that is so cool about it is, the world is starting to get back to normal. Um, with COVID, so inch by inch. And so it's going to be the first time that we've played in a full capacity. And if you've ever watched a game of ours down here in Tuscaloosa, it'll be a straight on full capacity. So it'll be a packed house full of softball fans. They're going to be really ruckus, yelling at us, all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a great environment if you love the sport of softball. And fortunately, we have, some of us have been in this environment before. And I think playing down in the SEC tournament was helpful just to get familiar with with everything that goes on surrounding the softball field.
We'll start off with John Hale from the Courier Journal.
Hi, Rachel. I know that, or I think I read that Montana Fouts committed to Alabama when she was like a freshman at East Carter. So did you really even have much time to establish a recruiting relationship with her? And how have you seen her grow from when she was dominant as a Kentucky high schooler to what she is now?
Yeah, Montana started her recruiting process. This is back when seventh graders and eighth graders and stuff were being recruited, and you could, give them offers and stuff like that. Obviously they don't sign till their senior year, but a sport like softball, we had such an early verbal environment. But yeah, she had been on campus a couple of times. She had visited. Ultimately, she had picked Alabama, but great kid. The thing about her that makes her so special is she's an incredibly hard worker, and she's very humble. I mean, she's just an outstanding player. She's great for the sport of softball, and she's been outstanding for Alabama. I mean, one of the storylines that keeps coming out about Alabama, which is true, is they had a couple of injuries to the middle infield, and they do have a very, very veteran team. I think there's only two players in their starting lineup that's not either a senior or a super senior. But so they're incredibly strong throughout. But one of the places where they had taken a little bit of a hit was they had some injuries in the middle infielder. Well, in the infield. And when you have a pitcher as outstanding as Montana, and people really aren't putting the ball in play, she's really helped them not only get her strikeouts, but really help them, get the time that they needed to kind of solidify things as they work through that time period. Obviously Alabama is a incredibly solid team, but Montana Fouts is definitely one of the things in college softball, or one of the players, I shouldn't say things, one of the players in college softball that has made this year so special across the country.
Dick Gabriel.
Yeah, good morning, Rachel. It doesn't, in terms of adversity, it doesn't get much better or worse, whatever you want to call it, than fighting your way out of the elimination bracket. And I talked to Autumn about this the other night. She said, she knew that if we lose again, I don't play anymore. And she talked about how after you all got over the initial shock of just being crushed by Notre Dame, they could just kind of pull back together. Is there any kind of advantage in that experience going into this regional where it seems like everything's going against you in terms of being on the road and things like that?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. It is true. I mean, so you get crushed, and just about everything wrong could have gone wrong for several players, not just one or two. We weren't strong up the middle, on the mound. We were trying too hard to make pitches, so everything was flat. It was just not great. Our offense didn't respond. And one of the things that we do all year is we really pride ourselves on our ability to answer back. And I think just focusing on that from, the fall all the way through the winter, all the way through February, early tournaments, going through the SEC, getting beat in a game and then coming back and having to beat the SEC team the next weekend, having a stretch there of about 2 weeks where we were trying to figure out, our defense just when Mallory Payton got hurt. That was a rough stretch for us as well. So we had been through those stretchers before, but we kept, answer back. And I think that it was, our mentality to do that really helped us, and our ability to stay in the moment and really understand that we've got to really take this pitch by pitch. I mean, people really say that, but it's something we focus really hard on. And I think that because everybody had such a bad moment and they were able to pick themselves back up and have a good weekend. I could see where that would give us the confidence that we need moving forward. I hadn't really looked at it that way, but that does make a lot of sense to me.
John Wong, go ahead.
Rachel, we all know how great Alabama is, and you've got such a tall task ahead of you. And yet we also know who your stars are, but who are some of maybe your lesser known players who need to really step up in order for you to pull this upset?
Well, this is an interesting matchup for us because everybody but two people on Alabama's starting roster, like their position players, all of them are seniors and super seniors with a ton of experience. And you have the exact mirror image, well, actually opposite image in us. We only have two players returning in the starting lineup that have played their position or have any experience at all. So you have exact opposites going on. And so when you think of our team, other than, Kayla, and you're getting a lot of press out of Erin, but you got to remember that Erin is 18? I don't know if she's turned 19 yet. And her counterpart in the shortstop position is a super senior, her counterpart in the lineup, that she's trying to combat as a super senior. And so, when you talk about lesser known people, I think you have to go with Tatum Spangler has done a really good job. She started the season, batting lower in the order. She slowly creeped her way up into the 5-6 hole. And now she's batting second for us and had an outstanding regionals. I think you have to look at Renee Abernathy, who did not have very many at-bats before coming into this season. And, she's had a lot of key RBIs, key hits, key home runs, that sort of thing. So I don't think that people would necessarily know who she is. You look at Miranda Stoddard's had a great couple of last weeks. She's somebody who actually comes in. She's a pitcher, but we needed somebody to play third base, and she's done a good job growing into that position and really stepping up her game slowly. And that's going to be needed this weekend. So, you kind of point to those three as people that you don't know. I think the more known names, obviously, are our pitchers with Humes and Ballman, and then you have, of course, Kwolek, and Koffel for a freshman has made quite a splash for herself. So you kind of look at that. And then we've had Lauren Johnson is the one player that keeps, she keeps playing new positions. So she hasn't really been able to settle in, but she's somebody that's always in the mix of things for us.
Larry Vaught, go ahead.
Rachel, could you just talk a little bit about what Kaylee Tau adds for Alabama, and then also about with Erin? How do you kind of feel about her going into this big time atmosphere for the first time in such a big moment?
Well, first to speak about Kaylee. Kaylee's obviously an outstanding player, and she played with Mallory Payton and Lauren Johnson growing up, so that's quite a thing. And she's got one of the harder jobs in college softball because she's batting behind Bailey Hemphill, and she's done a really good job with that. She's very steady. So when you put Bailey Hemphill on base, Kaylee does a good job of coming up and hitting under pressure. She's a big time player, just like all those other Kentucky kids. When they played together, they did win the national championship together as, when they were playing travel ball. So I thought it was a very special team. Ballman was also on that team. Emmy Blaine was on that team. Lauren, I think, Mallory, all that. So there was a very good team, very good players who know how to play in the big moment. And when you think about the big moment, Erin Koffel certainly has been in a lot of big moments. She's won herself a state championship. She's played high level travel ball and has been in the championship day. And those tournaments are long. I mean, there's 200 teams in there. And for her to be in the top 4 from the state of Indiana is such an incredible deal at the level she was playing and the team she was playing with. So she's definitely been in big moments, and she's a big time player. I think that regionals probably helped her getting back to, what we talked about earlier, that, she had to get those nerves out. I could tell she was a little bit, she tries to make everything so perfect. So she was able to calm down on Sunday and really play her game, get some key RBIs in regionals, and really start to loosen up and play some shortstop. So, you never know what they're going to do when they get out in the field, but I know if anybody can handle it, it's Erin.
Eric Lopez, go ahead.
Coach, you faced Coach Murphy so many times over the years. What stands out about him that makes him such a successful head coach there and his staff?
He's good at it. Obviously, he and his staff are good at a lot of things. I think that it starts with his ability to market his program. I think he was one of the first one of the first coaches who really understood that you need to fill a stadium. You need to make sure you have the crowd behind you. You know, you see little signs that it's like, I don't know if it's Murphy's Army or whatever the case is. I don't really know what it is, but you know, and when he needs a lift, he's figured out how to orchestrate this whole situation where he gets the crowd pumped up, and they do such an outstanding job with the girls and giving them that boost of energy they need. I think he's outstanding at that, and obviously was at the forefront of understanding what a great marketing sport softball could be at the national level across the country. I think he does a great job with his team. He really knows how to, you know, motivate them to play Alabama softball. I think that's one of the reasons they're so strong in the postseason. They know how to play together, and they play great team softball. And it helps them through their adverse times. They know how to pass the bat down to the next player and the next player and the next player. So I think he's just such an exceptional person about getting people to play that way, and to really, you know, it helps them carry themselves through adverse times.
Keith Farmer.
Rachel, Coach Stoops in the last few years has just talked about when he goes to bowl games, he's learned certain things in order to show up differently, prepare differently, practice differently. I'm wondering, in the years that you've been to super regionals, is there something that you found, some tweaks, some different things that you think put your team in a good spot going into this weekend?
Well, you know, I definitely don't know how Stoops does it. And I'm sure game planning is different for different teams, but you know, every year, so with softball, and we've had so many, we're always playing the SEC, or we're always playing one of the better Pac-12 teams. And so you learn so much in those super regionals. And even when we went to the World Series, you learn so much how to coach your team. So you go out there, you recruit a little bit differently, you get your personnel differently, you work on different skill sets, like your ability to, put the ball in play. So when you're facing somebody who throws 70 miles an hour, you might be able to, barrel up on it, because that's over 100 in baseball, so it's crazy. But while we're doing that, this is what makes the SEC such a cool thing. You've got the other SEC team doing the same thing with their personnel. And so I think the thing that I've learned over the years is, number one, you have to have a deep pitching staff, obviously, to make a deep run. And two, you've really got to figure out how to host. Hosting is such a big deal for so many reasons. I mean, one of the things that you saw if you watch the Alabama regional is their ground is so hard that all their quick little slappers have to do, and they're amazing. They've got incredible bat control. They just bounced on the ground. And I mean, you even see balls that are bouncing over the top of the shortstop's head, the third baseman's head. So, when you're the host, and then you have the host crowd and stuff like that. So it's more about, what did you learn so that you can position yourself better, so that you can either host, or you can, get a different personnel, or play a game that you can combat some of these outstanding players. So I think our learning is more of a year-long process and less about just this one moment in time.
John Hill.
Rachel, I can't imagine there would be many matchups with two better catchers than this one, which is, why it's so weird to see Kayla hit 500 the SEC and be second team all SEC. Can you just talk about how those two players compare? Obviously, they're different players, and they're not really going head to head, but just that matchup in general. Yeah,
they're completely different players. And the whole SEC thing, I think it's probably time that they revisit how they do awards. You want your best players to be on the first team, not just – so also, like, A&M had an outstanding catcher that also deserved to be on the first team, in my opinion. But they're just so different because, Hemphill is just she's taller than she looks. She's long. She's incredibly strong. And she can put her barrel on just about anything. And when she does, the exit velo is just crazy. So her RBI potential is just off the roof. And she doesn't really strike out a lot. She puts the ball in play. She puts it in play hard. And she just really changes the middle of your orders. And when you have those other players around her that just do such an outstanding job getting on base, she creates just havoc for you, because a lot of times when she's batting, she's always in an RBI situation. Kayla's very different because she, being a leadoff batter, it's just a very different situation, because she's in a situation where she has to take pitches maybe to get on base. She has to do small ball if the players are playing back, because she's got to be the one that gets on base. If she's an RBI situation, she has to try to drive the ball to the gap. So her skill set has to be a little bit different, because she's trying to combine what, let's say, an Alabama situation, like she's trying to combine what a Mack and a Brown do with the getting on base to to get the offense started with, okay, now I've got to turn it around and I've got to, maybe be in an RBI situation. So I think that their skill sets are completely different. I think they're both incredible. I think they're both outstanding. And I think they're both deserving of, high accolades for sure.
John Wong.
Rachel, you've mentioned a couple of times now about the crowd down there at Alabama. I mean, you've had great crowds at John Crop Stadium. What is it about the atmosphere at Rhodes Stadium that makes it so intimidating? And do you think your team has the proper mindset to be able to counteract that?
Well, there's just more of them. I think that's the thing. Like, so this year we were only allowed to have 50% capacity. So you're talking about 1,000 people. There'll probably be like 3,500. I don't know what Alabama's capacity is, but it'll be something similar to that. So you're just talking, there's more people just completely surrounding you. And it's one of the few times when you're a softball player that you're in that environment where they're completely around you, because they have that brickyard that's really awesome. The other thing is they've been cultivating that fan base. I mean, they've had a strong fan base for at least 20 years that I can think of, or at least 14 that I've been in the SEC. And each year they add to it. They just have such a large pride in being one of the better fan bases in the country. I definitely think that the Big Blue Nation, our fan base that shows up, is incredible. And I know they give us the boost that we need to win these big games. It's just that the Alabama fan base is a little bit bigger. And the other thing is they're a knowledgeable fan base. They're a great fan base for softball. They know what's going on. They know when to clap when their players need a big moment. They cheer with the players turn around and cheer with them. Their coach turns around and cheers with them. It's just it's a different type of environment that you're really not used to that much. Can we do it? Sure. If anybody's going to come down in Tuscaloosa, it either has to be an SEC team, or it has to be a Pac-12 team, or a few of the teams in the Big 12. We're the only people that have those type of environments right now. Not to say that won't change moving forward, because softball has become such a big sport on the national stage. But right now, the only teams that are used to being in this hostile crowd are SEC teams, Pac-12, and a couple of the Big 12.
Larry Vaught, go ahead.
Rachel, how much does it help you, do you think, that you did win a series earlier against Alabama? And I know last week or Sunday you were talking about you were concerned that Kayla was just flat wore out. Have you done anything special this week to give her any more rest or try to get her rejuvenated and everything?
Well, I think she's incredibly strong, and she's not completely wore out. It's just that her legs, that's not what the ideal situation you want for a slapper is, to be able to catch so many games. But for the past couple of weeks, except for on game day, she's, we've in practices and stuff, you kind of manage the amount of time that she's behind the dish. But also she is so good about getting her treatment before practice, after practice, during the day. She does a good job with her nutrition, all that sort of stuff. So, I'm and she's so mentally tough. So I think she's going to be fine. Plus, in a super regional format, you're talking one game a day, as opposed to, being at the field all day, playing 2 games, waiting, playing a game, waiting, playing another game, that sort of situation. So supers is a little bit different situation. So I feel good about where Kayla is at for sure.
And what about the confidence from winning the series against them earlier?
Well, I think there's a lot of confidence in that, because, you just have to know that you can play with the team. And the fact that, we were able to play with them and beat them gives us a big boost. Now, that was in Lexington, back to our crowd. So we had an amazing crowd that evening, did such a good job helping us through the thing. Now, playing them in the SEC tournament, I think even though we lost, I think that also is helpful, just because we were in that environment a little bit. And so I think that the familiarity with all of that certainly will be good. So I think the confidence of knowing you can beat them and the familiarity with the environment definitely is better for us moving into the games this weekend.
Thanks.
Dick Gabriel.
Rachel, you were talking about Alabama building its program. Certainly you've done the same thing, but how much could you comment on the development of softball and the SEC in general in this age of social media and the SEC network? It seems like it's all kind of working together to expedite the growth of the sport.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think ESPN is the biggest driver of why softball has continued to grow and be one of the bigger sports at the national level. Like, each year our ratings go up and up and up and up. and where our demographic, certainly the biggest part of our demographic, I believe it's in the Southeast. We're starting to see growth in other demographics. We're starting to see growth in younger people. We're starting to see growth in like that 20-year-old age where people tend to not really follow sports as much. So we're seeing growth throughout the entire country and throughout many demographics. And I really believe a lot of credit of that goes to ESPN. But now that we have social media, that might be why we're contributing to the younger groups. So you can get it on your phone all the time. You know, everybody loves, where you may not want to sit down and watch an entire softball game. Everyone loves replays. Everybody loves the interactions with the students. Everybody loves, you know, big plays happening. And it's just continuing to grow and grow. I don't, you know, Scholes could speak to this, but the number of interactions that we have on social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or even a little bit Facebook, is just gone through the roof. And so it's a great sport. It's always been a great sport, but just being able to get out the word there has really helped us on a national level for sure.
One of the knocks on college baseball is that the reviews have kind of ground the pace to a halt. Are you in favor of reviews in softball in the future?
Well, in my opinion, baseball was already grounded to a halt before review. So I just think review is an excuse. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've gone to a college baseball game and it lasts 3.5 hours. So if college baseball wants to be a team, and softball has to face this, so we have fewer innings, so it's better for us. But I recall sitting in SEC meetings and our games were starting to trickle into the 2.5, 2:45, and they're still closer to 2.5, but 2:45, 3, and sometimes over 3. And so the sport of softball, we've made a lot of rules to help, get that game time closer to the, between the 2-hour and 2.5-hour mark, because once TV sets hit 2, people are going to stop watching. So whereas instant replay, maybe they can tweak how it's done. I am very much in favor of instant replay, especially because of how fast our sports are played. Like, umpires cannot keep up with the speed of the game anymore. I can't tell you how many times there's a safe out call that is the wrong direction. I don't think there's anything wrong with umpires. I just think that, especially in our case, the field is small, ball is fast, girls are bigger, stronger, faster than they've ever been before. And it's really hard to keep up. And so I think replay will help keep get those plays right. And I just think as we're more comfortable using it and tweaking it, the mechanics of the replay will be a lot faster.
Got time for one more if anyone has one. Don't have anything in the queue, but if you have one, John, you want to finish this off for this morning? Go ahead.
Yeah, Rachel, the fact that this is 2 out of 3, I know you always, as a coach, you tell your team it's one game at a time, but are there any particular strategies that you employ knowing that you've got a chance at more than just one game?
Not as much, because, I guess if you had multiple starting pitchers, you could do something that way. And I certainly think the sport of softball is headed that direction with power pitchers. But because ace pitchers can throw back to back to back days. So let's say we're facing Montana Fouts, and for some reason, if we get on her, well, you're going to face her again. So it's not like you can really kind of change that. The other thing that is different is in softball, you can score runs in a hurry because of, again, I alluded to before, how hard the ground is, the ability for people to put the ball in play, how close it is, how fast the sport is. So people can score runs in a hurry. So the deficit would have to be pretty large for you to really kind of change how you do things. You pretty much have to go after each game as if it's your last game.
Right. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, as always, we appreciate everyone hopping on this morning. We will talk to you tomorrow night, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate it.